Our retro game of the week is Frogger, that classic 1980s game of getting the frog across the road, across the river and onto the lily pads without getting hit by a car, drowning in the river. Let's see how we get this game to work. The link to the Scratch resource is in the description below, and everything you need to know to understand how the game works I'll go through in this video. Remember, I don't teach us how to move blocks. I'm all about showing you what the actual blocks actually mean. And guys, don't forget to comment below if there's any other games you'd like me to unpack or any code you'd like me to explain. Just remember, comment below and I'll get back to you. As you can see, this was quite an extensive one with quite a few different sprites involved, lots of timing involved, and also a number of costumes. Our frog and car sprites and our logs and turtles are all quite simple, but let's take a look at our lily pads. They have 3 different costumes. Our starter lily pad, where it's waiting for the frog to come on and jump. Empty, when there's no lily pad in one of our bays, so if the frog jumps there, it loses a life. And then we have our complete lily pad with the frog sat on top of it. So that's just an example of how we use costumes during this game. And also our backdrop has been quite important to make sure that we've got all of the lanes on the road in the right places for the vehicles to travel down, and also the spacing in the water to make sure we can get the logs and turtles across. Then finally, for our bays, we have this green around where our lily pads go into the centre. So lots of bits of precision during this one today, but remember, everything is on my resource in Scratch, so just go and download it from there and remix it, edit it, do whatever you like with it. But please carry on watching and start to understand what all the code means. And guys, you might not realise it, but only 22% of you watching this video today have actually subscribed to my channel. So please like, comment, subscribe and switch that notifications bell on so you don't miss an episode. Let's start off by looking at the blocks inside our frog sprite. So we go up to code and it shows us all these blocks. And we have the beginning of our game block. And here it lists everything that the game is set to at the very start. So we have 3 lives, our score is 0, no frogs have got home yet, our speed multiplier is just 1, because every time the frog hits the lily pads above and we start again, the multiplier increases. So at the moment it's at 1, so the top Y is the position of our frog at the start. The reason that's important links us straight into this next piece of code here, which is the Y position and changing the score, because every time, if we just click here, we go forward, you can see our score increases. So that's the line. This part here is all about changing that score and adding 10 on and then setting a new top Y each time. Then we've got our movement, and as you can hear with our movement, we've got those annoying jump sounds. So our sounds are just here. And you can see all the different sounds that we've got for different effects. So we've got that slap effect. We've got lily pad. So when you get to the end, we've got that annoying jump sound. And we've got a bong if you touch the sides as well. All of these, left arrow, moving forward, and just make sure you get these measurements correct, especially with going up and down, because that's what keeps your frog onto the lanes or onto the logs or the turtles. So it might take a little bit of tweaking there. Next part of our code is we come down here and just look how many codes inside codes we've got here, just to get this bit right. And it's all about what happens if we're touching any of the cars or the lorries, and it's about hearing that splat sound and losing a life. And then you see we're broadcasting this message, lose a life. That takes us further down here. If we just scroll down to here, you'll see what happens each time we lose a life. So the number of lives changes by -1. We reset our top Y back to this beginning point, and we move our frog there. And then we've also got this that if lives gets to equal 0, then we get this game over. And game over is in a sprite of its own. And here you can see it receives the message game over. It sets game running to 0, so it ends the game. And then puts the game over message right in the middle there. We also have this stop all, because if we go back to the beginning, you'll see some parts of our game aren't in the first forever loop. So we have just a final stop all there, just to make sure the game has completely finished. So that was our movement and our sounds and what happens when we lose a life on the car. We then have this section here by between 10 and 115. That's this water section. So we have another broadcast of check water. And here you'll see what's going on in our check water. So we have log speeds that are moving along, turtles, and we got 2 lots of logs and 2 lots of turtles, and we've got this speed multiplier in again, meaning they get quicker as the game progresses and as you get more frogs to the end. So the game gets harder every frog you get, but to be a winner in the game, you need to have all 5 frogs there. And we heard it earlier, if you miss, we play the splashdown, and once again we broadcast that lose life again. Our final bit here, if we go above into this green section here, we've got another piece of code to look at, which is our made it home code. So the frog's home is up in this green section, but to be truly home, he has to land on a lily pad. So what we've done then is we've got another piece of code down here called made it home. And what this does is we look at the absolute position of X, but also we want to get the frog into the centre of the lily pad. And this is what makes that happen. So we take away minus 191 where it is, and we say if that is less than 10, then we'll give it that the frog is in the centre of the lily pad. And so by increasing this value here of 10, we can increase or decrease how accurate the frog needs to be. And we've got all of these, one for each lily pad, and you can see the X position is changing all the way through as we're on the different lily pads. And once again, we get a broadcast land bay for 5, and we also get a play splash. So this broadcast landing on each bay, these are picked up by the lily pads. So if we go over to bay 1's lily pad, you can see that it has its own bit that's when the green flag is clicked, this part here, if I just click the green flag, you'll see that these disappear, the lily pads. That is caused by this bit of code here, which just makes them randomly switch between costumes. That empty costume and their full costume. And then we have the thing about this land bay 1. So from our frog sprite, a message was sent land bay 1 or for whichever lily pad we're in. And here we change the costume to switch frog home. So if the frog is touching the lily pad, we switch frog home, and then we change the score. So we get 50 points for getting the frog home, but also we round up the time, and whatever time is left on our timer here gets added to our points. Then we broadcast the fact that the frog has scored. But if it jumps on there when there is no lily pad and the costume name is empty, then it loses a life. And that's how the frog landing on the lily pad section works. So then if we go back to our frog sprite, frog scored is actually picked up from our frog sprite again. And it says, when I receive frog scored, play the lily pad sound until done. And also you can see then that when frog's home equals 5, that's when we finally win the game. So you've got all of the frogs home. And so when I receive, you win. So that was broadcast when we get 5 frogs home. The game is set to running, and the frog goes back to where it was, and everything is hidden. If we go to our U1 script here, it will pick up that you win. It produces that you win sound. So that's how our game works. We have our turtles here, so they're moving, and also we've got them creating clones of themselves. That's how we get the multiple turtles and logs coming along. So there's only one sprite of each type of turtle. There's 3 logs, but they're in the different rows. So if we just pause that there, you can just see that our logs are in different rows and our turtles are in different rows, but inside those they all clone themselves, and that's how we get this repeat of them moving across. And then once again, if the frog lands on it, the frog starts to go at the speed of the log. So we've got this multiplier again, so that whenever the round increases, because the frog has got home, the speed of the logs or the turtles go quicker. We're slightly different in the vehicles, as you can see. If I just click onto here, you'll see I've set the time of our cars here by just changing the X value by different values. So -5, and if we go to our tractor, you'll see that it's only 1. And you'll notice that we got different directions. So our tractor and our lorry, positive values, whereas our cars all have negative values, but all travelling at different speeds. And once again, you can adjust those for whatever you like. If we go now finally to our life frogs, you can see that at the start of the game, if I switch it off here, start of the game, we have 1 frog in play and 3 alive. We have our costumes here of our 3 frogs, 2 flogs and 1 frog. And then those costumes change as we lose lives. And at the end of the game, all of the frogs get hidden. Then we have our time bar. As you can see here, the time decreases. And as I said earlier, that time that you make it across that you have left is added onto your score. The time always changes when our game is running. And you can see that how we've worked the time to decrease. And then when the time sets to 0, we lose a life and our frog just comes back to the beginning. So as a time taker, you see that it broadcasts that message to lose a life. And also we've got our frog reset part here, which is when the frog gets up to the top, is that the time is reset once we've got back to the bottom, because we get those points. Then for our scoreboard, it's what we've been doing the last few weeks, using that floor value of our score and then dividing it for each digit. So for example, dividing our floor value by 1,000 and then doing the modulo again to get it to that rounded number. And then we have that set up for our thousands, hundreds, tens and ones. And there's the explanation behind that. And that's what gives us this retro score at the top here. I hope you found that useful, and how we can code in Scratch and how we can develop some of these retro games from the 80s, and that we can start to understand how all that coding works, because that's the foundations of moving on to other coding languages. Next week, we'll be building that classic Space Invaders and looking at the code behind the blocks. So don't forget, like, subscribe, switch those notifications on so you don't miss out on my next post.